This is MyBlend Stories, and I'm Jeff Gerlach. Sarah Wood is an educational technologist at Godfrey-Lee Public Schools in Wyoming, Michigan. She works with K-12 teachers to utilize the technology resources that the district has available. There is no such thing as a normal week in her role, and this is something that she enjoys. Over 8 years, she says her responsibilities have morphed as technology has evolved. I was excited to talk to Sarah about Godfrey-Lee's Rebel U event, their very own educational technology conference that takes place during their teacher days in August. We also chatted in general about how she approaches using tech integration to meet district-wide goals. This is her story. Hey, Sarah.
Hey, Jeff, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
How'd the day go?
Oh, it's crazy with testing, but
So it's still the M-Step stuff, right?
Yep, this is our first week of it.
First week? And
Yep.
is it 2 weeks or?
For our tech team, we've got a solid 9 weeks.
For 9 weeks. How much for actual testing? For the average student anyway.
I'm not sure what it's ending up to be because I'm just looking at it from our tech end of it, but
Right. Is Godfrey-Lee pretty well prepared for that from a technology and manpower standpoint, or?
we're finding out we're very prepared. We had to build another server to support the number of students testing at one time, which has been a phenomenal choice to do that, to take the extra time to do that. So we can test up to 300 at a time, which is probably more than what we have actually testing at one time, but it gives us that nice buffer so that no one's waiting, like, I can't submit anything.
Right.
Yeah.
So thanks for meeting up with me.
No problem.
And I think, if you had sinus stuff last week, I have sinus stuff this week. So I'm going to try to, I should be doing this anyway, but I'm going to try to let you talk as much as possible and keep my questions as succinct as possible. But I'm kind of long-winded, and that probably won't work out anyway. So if I start coughing, I'm not dying. I'll probably mute myself and collect myself.
I fear sinus pain.
Yeah, I mean it's that time of year, right? I think it's better in the fall, / winter when I always when I was teaching, I got sinus infections at the start of school and then towards the end of the school year, and but it's still like in those seasons, that's when I get sick, and I don't know if you're similar at all or if it just hits you randomly. I also don't like to believe that I'm sick. I think that
Right at the very end.
Right. And I think that still comes from, when you're in the classroom and you get sick, you can't really be replaced and you feel an obligation to trudge through it. So I always prefer the fall because at least the weather's getting horrible and I can't enjoy it anyway. When it's the spring and everything's warming up, I feel like, I feel miserable and it's beautiful outside. So that's always torturous.
Worst part of it.
Yeah. So who are you? What do you do? Where have you been? Your journey as an educator.
My name's Sarah Wood, and I work in Godfrey-Lee Public Schools in Wyoming, Michigan. And I started off in this role 8 years ago as an educational technologist. My role has kind of morphed over time just due to the fact that technology changes, so the job kind of changes. But I did start off teaching in the classroom for 1st through 8th computer applications, and then transitioned into the role of more of a consultant.
Gotcha.
And right now I work with all teachers K-12 to basically utilize the technology resources that we have available.
I've found out that a lot of integration specialists and similar roles in working in the instructional side of IT, a lot of them come out of that computer teacher background. Do you think that particularly equipped you with a good set of skills to go into that terrain, or that just happened to be your background?
It happened to be, I guess, a little bit of both. I have a background in elementary education as well as computer science and math. So then when I first, was graduate of college, I was going for that first teaching job, and so that's how I it was actually a part-time teaching job with first through eighth graders. And then after that, the position that I'm currently in became available. And so I applied, and that's how I ended up where I'm at.
Awesome. So what does your day-to-day look like with teachers, administration, and right now it's a lot of M-Step support, right? But in a normal week, a normal month.
I can honestly say that there isn't a normal, which I actually really love about my job.
Yeah, that's
good. Because it changes so much day to day and teacher to teacher and even grade level that I'm working with, that it all depends on what the teachers are working on at that time. Sometimes I'll meet with teachers during the school day. Sometimes it's after school, before school, whenever they feel they need support or time to just sit down and talk about like, hey, this is what I have going on. I have no clue how I want to use this. What are some suggestions? What have you seen other teachers doing? So sometimes conversation just kind of stems from there. Otherwise, they'll say, hey, I saw this person across the hall. I want to do what they're doing. How can you show me how to do that?
That's awesome.
So it's hard to say that there's really a normal because it's so student driven, which drives the teachers, what drives me. So.
Do you do a lot of like one-on-one support with teachers then? Small group, large PD?
I do a lot of, actually all of those. I really focus on whatever the teacher feels that they need. If they're more comfortable with one-on-one, I'll work with them one-on-one, and it turns into more of a very much a conversational, hands-on kind of session. Otherwise, sometimes a grade level will come to me and say, hey, can you show our whole grade how to use this program? Or we have iPads. What can we do? But we've done building level professional developments that I've run. Our district does a whole big professional development day at the beginning of the year called Rebel U, and that's for all teachers K through 12 as well as administrators.
Rebel U is open to your teachers, just your teachers, or?
Right now, we have it open just to our teachers because our teachers started off, we're going into our 6th year here, saying, hey, we really need professional development. And they kept on talking to their administrators, to our superintendent. And so we finally were able to our technology team was able to secure a day for professional development. And we said, basically, how can we maximize this one day that we've received and really meet all teachers' needs? And so that was a little difficult, but then we took a step back and said, hey, what do we like about professional developments that we go to? And it came back to that conference, that kind of McCall kind of feel, and because we felt that there was something for everyone. And so that's kind of how we structured our Rebel U Day. We have teachers that step forward and present. We bring in outside presenters. Basically, anyone who's willing to share with other educators, we welcome them. And we are having conversations about how we can expand our Rebel U program to include other districts or other schools so that we can just help our teachers get a bigger view of what's going on in the educational world as far as technology is concerned.
I'd like to talk more about that because I don't think a lot of districts have like their own, what they would call an instructional technology conference or an educational technology conference. And it's cool how you brand it as Rebel U. And you even have, you started with your teachers, but you have plans to expand it to maybe bring in neighboring districts or just open it up to the public in general to have people come in. I know that Jimmy DeWitt was talking with me about participating in it with you as a possibility. So I thought that was really interesting that you have that all going on. So I guess I'm just interested in general, is it really organic where teachers are coming forward with proposals to do sessions? Do they have to get approval for it? Is it more you said it's more like McCall than it is like an unconference, right? So I'd be interested in hearing kind of about how teachers are bringing their ideas to you. Are you kind of going out there and suggesting to them that they should present on the kind of stuff they're doing since you work with them on a day-to-day basis? Or is it more them coming to you with these great session ideas, a little bit of both? How's that working out?
The short answer is all of the above. And the long answer is that we send out we call it a call for presenters. We try and make it formal and really try and make this, this is a big deal for our district. It's a big deal for our teachers, really letting them know, we care about you and your students and what you're doing in your classrooms, and we don't want technology to hinder anything that you're doing, so we want to provide as much support as we can, because it really should be a tool that supports the student learning and teacher instruction. So we send out a call for presenters, and we just send it out, and what comes in, comes in. Some teachers are like waiting for that call for presenters to come out, and they're signing up. They're saying, hey, we'll do this session. We try to align everything when they fill out that call for presenters, that it's aligned to our district school improvement plan as well as ISTE standards, so that it's all relevant to what they're doing. And then once we have that initial group of people that have responded, we then start reaching out to teachers. We're like, hey, we didn't see that you filled out the call for presenters. We would love to see you present this, because I saw you doing this in your classroom with your students, and it's just amazing. So then we get more people that come in that way. We reach out to the educational technology consultants at the local ISD here at Ken ISD, and usually they all present for us as well. And really, we don't limit it to, oh, you have to teach, you have to be this kind of person. In the end, titles don't matter. It's the content that you're trying to present to help student learning. And so just last year, we instituted administrator sessions, which was new for us. And it went over amazing. The administrators felt that they were part of the day. It wasn't just a day for teachers, because this is an initiative that our superintendent has really pushed for the entire district. And so everyone's a part of that. So principals, people at our administrative building attend those administrative sessions, and it just helps everyone get the bigger picture of why we're doing what we're doing and how technology supports teachers and students.
That's excellent. I can say that I think making it super formal like that and making it a big deal makes it a big deal, right?
Mm-hmm. But yet, despite the formality that we have with that, I don't want to say it's contradictory to how the entire day goes, but what we focus on is fun for the day. Learning should be fun. When our teachers come to Rebel U, it is anything but a sit and get kind of professional development. One of our district initiatives is with cooperative learning, specifically with like Kagan and SciApp. And so many of our teachers have been trained in both those. So they're using those strategies that they normally use with their students with the teachers that are in their session. So everyone's up, moving around. It's hands-on. No one just sits there for 60 minutes at a time and just sits and listens. And we really encourage our presenters to use those tools that they already use with their students, because we've all been there. You don't want to just sit and listen for 4, 5, 60-minute sessions throughout the day. It gets kind of boring.
And you check out towards the end of the day and don't get as much out of it as you otherwise would. This is in the fall, right? At the start of the school year?
Correct. It's part of the mandatory back-to-school professional development days that's built into the teacher contract now.
Awesome. So thinking back to that time, and I know that you're already like in full swing gearing up for next year, but I guess, between the both, do any sessions stick out to you in particular? You probably were jumping around between a bunch of things, putting the event on, right? But I'd be interested in knowing like some of the innovative things that teachers are doing, some of the innovative things that administrators are trying to do, and maybe even proposals that you're particularly psyched about going into the start of next school year.
Mm-hmm. It's hard to say, because every year there's presenters that have done, presented in previous years, but so many new presenters, because they're like, hey, I saw so-and-so do it last year. I can do this myself, and so sometimes they'll co-present with someone else. Last year, we had a high school social studies teacher who presented for the first time, and he presented on flipping his history classroom and how he's doing that. And it was just so amazing to hear him speak and present to his audience, because I hadn't heard him speak about his work that way before. And it was like one of those things you just wanted to give him a high five and say, I'm so proud of you, because look at the amazing things that you're doing. And now that you're sharing it with others, someone might walk away with it and be like, wow, that was really cool. I like this, and this about what you're doing. I'm not going to do the full model that you are, but I can definitely use this in my classroom.
That's cool.
Yeah, and then as far as this coming year, we're still trying to get a few more presenters and finalize our agenda here, but we have a lot more sessions which I'm really excited to say, that are not focused on a tool. It's definitely become apparent in our district that technology is that digital resource to support student learning. And so it's not, how to use Glogster, which is a great tool, but it's, how can you use these, 5 tools in your math instruction, or how can you use QR codes in your reading centers kind of things.
That's cool. So the conversation is shifting, and you feel like it's obviously you've probably been encouraging that, but kind of a natural, organic process, shifting away from sessions on tools and more on instructional sessions involving tools.
Exactly.
That's a huge thing. Probably takes up a ton of your time. Do you have any other projects or any other time to do anything else?
We do. We try and make our professional development that we offer to our teachers where it's not like, a one-time thing where you sit for one day, you get something, and we'll see you next fall kind of thing, which is why we really try to make Rebel U a fun kind of thing to really kick off the year with, wow, I'm energized, I'm excited to use the resources I have in my classroom. And then I also put on mid-year professional development called EdTech Cheer, which is kind of a spin on, the 12 days of Christmas, where I do 12 days of activities or presenting resources, just however it fits into our district initiatives at that time. And so I change it up every year. So this past year was all focused on cooperative learning and SciUp and how technology supports that. And it was amazing, some of the things I even learned from teachers, and I was the one who organized it. And that's just an online, completely virtual professional development. And we are currently working on developing Moodle courses for our teachers so we can have some on-demand PD. Just, we hear, I'm struggling with how to use technology in my math classroom. So we'll develop a course, and we're just in the very initial stages of this, how can technology support that specific math program or instructional tool or standard?
Like the cooperative grouping thing is interesting to me because obviously I'm familiar with cooperative grouping, but I don't think from a design standpoint I've ever set out with a goal of like, okay, we're going to do it. It's all like I always start with a content focus first. So when we talk about like cooperative grouping as a focus to try to do more of, I guess sometimes I feel like content drives the decision to use cooperative grouping, and then that fleshes out instructionally what we're going to do with a cooperative group strategy. Right? There's going to be little nuances that are going to change because of the content and obviously the kids that are participating in these cooperative groups. And then it's like from there, another step would then be, okay, like technology-wise, what does technology do to support that? Is that similar to the kind of conversations that you have with teachers when they're trying to implement something new? Do they come to you about like how? And cooperative grouping is just an example, but is it a lot of pedagogical talk? Like I want to do this pedagogically. What can support? What technology can support that for me?
A little bit. Sometimes we have many teachers right now that are going through a year-long Kagan Cooperative Learning course at the ISD where they meet a couple Saturdays throughout the year. And so I can always tell that Monday when they've had their training on Saturday because they come back and they're like, hey, I heard about this and I heard you have some suggestions for tools that I can use in regards to with using this structure. So for like example, one of the Kagan cooperative learning structures it's called carousel feedback, and people have probably done something very similar before where you have a group of students who create a product, or it could even be an individual student, and then you have the other students go around and kind of not evaluate but take a look at their project, kind of critique, say what they liked about it, what they still wondered about. So one of the suggestions I had for that was, hey, why don't you set up a Google form? The students at that group can, provide their feedback right there, and then instantly the teacher gets all those responses, but that can easily also be shared with students so that you can see, wow, I could really improve on this area, and man, I nailed it in this area over here. So it's doing the same techniques that you've done before, but kind of taking the pencil and paper out. So we're trying to get our teachers more comfortable with using technology in that regard.
That's awesome that you described that, and thanks for that, because I like the idea of how closely akin that is to a gallery walk for me really like lights up in my mind. And using the form is really interesting with that. I would think that would really. Do you feel like using a form and having form fields for students really helps to focus them on the type of feedback that they're soliciting, or that they're giving rather?
And I've had some teachers that have had students come up with their own questions that they want to find out about their project. So they'll create their own Google form. And these are the things that they want feedback on their project. Sometimes the teachers will give everyone the same question. So it just depends on what kind of project they've created and what kind of feedback they want as far as how do we move forward from this point. But the students are really responsive to that. And I think Google Forms is great because it's easy for the students to use. And it gives you, with the summaries there, it gives you that input right away. Of course, you can dig a little bit deeper and, kind of nerd out some forms and stuff like that with formulas to get even more data out of that, but it's instant. You have it there.
Yeah, and just from a qualitative feedback perspective, community building, that culture of collaboration that kind of helps to facilitate. I think that especially with how forms, when I'm thinking about this now, you said the teacher can choose to report that back out and share it with the whole group. They can choose to give it to the individual student that the feedback is targeted towards. It's a really good starting point with students because giving feedback, peer review is a tough skill to teach because it's so fluid and depends on who the person. The qualities of that student, what they can and can't take feedback-wise, and then also their ability to provide feedback targeted specifically towards something, right? It's very easy to say, oh, I really like the colors that you used, or, next time you should use more color. But it's kind of, it's a very vulnerable skill that we all have to learn eventually, right? I just like the kind of controlled, you can almost scaffold the kind of emotional, vulnerable. Let me rephrase that. You're protecting students and letting in just enough vulnerability in small doses. And eventually, the hope would be if you did this in a discussion forum where everything's going to be live right away and maybe exchanges are going to be quicker and shorter gaps between them and maybe more of a buzzing, vibrant conversation. That feels more live around this. That would be better served once you've built and established the community in your classroom where there's trust that it's a safe environment, right?
Definitely, and that's part of the whole Kagan process of establishing that culture and community in your classroom. And you really are a family in that classroom, and that you have to trust your teammates and that no one is there to attack each other, that you're here to help each other learn.
That's cool. Yeah, so I'm not very steeped in Kagan, but now that I'm hearing it, it sounds like it lends well to that whole community side of a project-based learning environment, which is really, really cool.
Definitely.
Do you have any other stories from your work with teachers, like something that you were working on with a teacher or a group of teachers that was pretty exciting for you?
Most recently, the thing that comes to mind is that our district really participated in the digital learning day that took place in March. Our superintendent really wanted teachers to be a part of this bigger experience that's going on outside of our district or even our buildings. This is a big deal. And so we held I don't want to call it a professional development offering or even a professional learning or a meeting. It was our entire K2 teachers met with our tech team and we said, we're here to help you plan your activity for Digital Learning Day. We had some teachers that just ran with it. They knew what they wanted to do. Some really wanted a conversation with a member of our team as well as their whole grade level team or subject area to say, you know what, we maybe want to do something as a group. How can we do this? we had one teacher in particular, she's a first grade teacher, that decided for not just on Digital Learning Day, but she made it into a whole unit that supported her math as far as creating games with pixel press floors on their iPads. And these were first graders creating video games. It was, like for apps for iPads. It was amazing to see what they came up with. And she also had a lot of extension activities built into it. So they had to market their game. How much would they sell it for? They had to create posters. They had to kind of draw everything out. So it wasn't just the activity that they did on the iPad on one day. This turned into a week plus activity that she did with her students. So it was really awesome to see. And that just kind of stemmed from conversation and her connections that she's had with people and saying, hey, what can we do? So I was really excited to see that. And plus it was a new app that I hadn't heard of. So I learned from that too.
Yeah, I love when teachers that I'm working with are doing something that I'm completely unfamiliar with. It kind of like reinvigorates your desire to teach, right? You're wanting to be involved in that process. I think that's really cool around the development of. So they were building games, but then they were also like there's an economic ethos that's kind of padded around that whole thing about marketing and trying to sell that game as if you're starting your own business, your own gaming business, right?
Yeah, and so it took research on their part too. What apps are out there, video game apps. What do they sell for? Why are some free? Why do some cost money? You have to talk about the time that goes into building it, the resources. It was so much more than just, here's a free app we're using to build a game for today. So it was really amazing to see, and those kids were into that activity. It was so awesome. You walked in the room and everyone was on task doing what they needed to do because they needed that to go on to the next step, and they wanted to get and build that game so that they could really market their product.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, hey, I really appreciate getting the chance to talk today.
Me too. Thank you so much.
It was good after a couple of weeks of
I'm so sorry.
and like I said before, you couldn't control any of it. Part of it was we have a recording booth here, and when I get ready to go do these interviews, I get in the recording booth and it's nice and quiet and everything, and I get all set up. And so for the couple of times where we were going to meet, I got all set up, but it got really quiet and moved all my stuff in here. And so when we ended up not having the conversation, I just worked in here for the afternoon, and people thought I left.
You probably got a lot done.
Yeah. If anything, you helped my productivity by moving me to a padded room that was isolated from the rest of everyone else so that I couldn't talk with them. So I want to sincerely thank you for helping. What's that?
I said, we'll just blame Jamie for that.
Well, Jamie will listen to this a couple weeks after I put it out, so and she'll probably be working out while she's listening to it. So I'll just say that the padded room was a good break from Jamie, but I did miss her conversation in the afternoon. So.
She's awesome.
Definitely. Well, thanks so much, and I hope we get to meet face to face fairly soon here sometime.
Definitely.
It'd be great to reconnect and learn more from you.
Great. Thanks so much, Jeff.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thanks, you too.
Thanks for listening to MyBlend Stories. For more, visit myblend.org.